Hello, everyone. I'm Gina Romero from Connected Women, and I'm going to jump in because I think Minnie is having some connectivity issues, as I'm sure we've all experienced with our current work from home situation. But I just want to welcome you all to this webinar. WEConnect International have kindly invited me to share it. It's actually the first time that I've done this online. It's normally a 4-hour offline workshop. And I've hosted attendees in both Singapore and the Philippines on this webinar, but it's the first time I'm doing it online. And obviously I'm going to have to condense it a lot because this is a much longer session, and the content for something like this is very diverse. So I hope that I can give you at least some top level tips on how to survive in the virtual workplace. Let me just check now. Can everyone hear me? And can you see me? And can you see the screen? So those are the most important things, I think. Can you see me? And can you hear me? And can you see my screen? And hopefully, if you can see what I'm presenting, then we can proceed. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So thank you so much for being here. I would love to know a little bit more about you. I have my one eye on the comments, and I will keep an eye to see whatever you're posting as much as I can in between presenting the content from the webinar. But if you have access to the chat box, then I would love to know your name, your location. So where are you attending from? And what is your current situation? So are you a business? Are you a big team, a small team? How many people in your team? And are you currently in a work from home situation? And is that the normal situation for you? So are you a work from home person, entrepreneur, or team anyway? Or are you a physical offline team who are now trying to learn how to work in an online environment? So share a little bit in the chat box just so that I can know more about you, and share, if you don't mind, what you're looking for today as well. Like, why did you join this workshop, and what are you looking for? What was the information that you were hoping to find out? And hopefully I will make sure to cover, or at least touch on, whatever it is that you're looking for. Or maybe you're a remote team member. Maybe you're actually part of an entrepreneurial team, and you're here because you want to learn some tips that you can actually share with your fellow team members or fellow remote workers, or that you can use yourself in your remote work career. So I would love to know about you. Please don't be shy. Do post in there. And if you have questions throughout the session, you can post them in the box as well. I might not be able to cover all the questions, but I will give you my email address at the end of the session. So if there's something that's burning and you really want to know the answer and you didn't feel that it was covered in the session, I would be more than happy to try and answer that question for you after the webinar itself. So let's kick off. Oh, and if you have questions, just post them in the box as we go along, and I'll try to scroll up during the sessions just to keep an eye on it. And then at the end, if we have enough time, I'll do a little bit of Q&A and try and answer some of those questions for you. Great. So let's jump straight in. So I'm Gina Romero, and I run an organization called Connected Women. We actually started in Singapore back in 2013, and we're a community that aims to empower women entrepreneurs to use technology better in their business. So if you're a woman entrepreneur and you're thinking, well, I don't love technology, but I know I have to use it, you've definitely come to the right place, because we're all about trying to make technology useful and less scary and intimidating, even if you're not a techie. And if you are a little bit techie, then we love to have you in the group as well, because there's always a need for experts who are looking, who don't mind sharing their expertise with those who want to learn. So our mission is to help women share, connect, work, and learn. And we have around 70,000 members now, with a big base here in Manila, where I'm based, and where we have a lot of projects. But we also have members in Pakistan, in Singapore, in UK, Taiwan, and other areas of the world, even Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We have physical events that happen when we're not in a social distancing lockdown situation. And right now, of course, all of our events are currently online. So thank goodness for technology to enable us to do this. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I'd love to know about you. So please do share some of these, bits of information in the box so that I can learn more about you as we go through the webinar. So other than that, what is the purpose of this course? Well, it's a micro version of the regular workshop, as I mentioned, but what I'm going to try to share with you today is a little bit about how hiring an EVA or an executive virtual assistant can help you in your business or career, to know a little bit about the challenges as well as the advantages of hiring and working with remote staff, and also to assess if hiring virtual team members is actually right for you in your business, because it's not actually always the right time or the right thing to do. It really depends on where you are in your business and what you're trying to do. So I'll try and give a little bit of guidance as to whether or not it might be a good decision for you. And then if you're already decided and you know that you need to hire, then I'll cover a little bit about starting with hiring and how to find and manage an executive virtual assistant. And I'm talking mainly about EVAs, executive virtual assistants, because I feel that that's typically the most valuable person that you can hire in your team if you're a small team, or if you're a big team and you don't have a virtual assistant, then I think that that's probably a key hire for you. On the other hand, most of these tips can also be utilized in terms of hiring any remote team member. So if you're hiring a remote or virtual graphic designer or a remote marketer or any other job that can be done remotely, then these tips should hopefully help you too. And then just touch a little bit on some of the strategies and setups and the tools for managing remote teams, and understanding the limitations and benefits of automation and AI versus working with human team members. And that's a real big passion of mine, working and playing with new technology like artificial intelligence. And it's not as technical and as complicated as it sounds. So it might be something that might surprise you and interest you from this workshop. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to talk a little bit about time management first. So if you are an excellent time manager and you've got everything under control and you're doing great, then you may not find these tips as relevant, or you might just agree with me or disagree with me. But hopefully, it's something that will resonate with everyone, because I think before you even think about delegating tasks or you think about hiring people, you really have to start to understand a little bit more about how you currently spend your time. Now, when I was in the UK and I was running my first IT business with my husband, I had a business coach. And we had no processes in our business. We had started from home. We were a work from home couple, and we had just started to expand and get bigger clients. And we'd moved into an office, and I was struggling in a major way because we were just going through that little bit of growth. And we'd hired a few team members at that point, and we were turning into a proper business, not just a home-based one-person or two-person business. And the first thing that my business coach told me to do is audit my time. And so if you've never done this exercise, I strongly, strongly recommend that you do this, because it is one of the things that I've learned in my however many years now of being in business that I find has really, really helped me. And I'm often surprised at how many really experienced executives or experienced CEOs haven't actually done an audit on their time. So this is something that I strongly recommend. And time audit is really taking your Excel spreadsheet or Google sheet or whatever it is that you like to use, or even a pen and paper is fine. And what you do is you set a whole week aside, like from Monday next week, and from the time that you start your day, you write down in 30-minute increments what you did in the last 30 minutes. So you can set an alarm to go off every 30 minutes for that week while you're working or during the time that you want to audit, and then you just write down what you did. And then what you do, if you use an Excel sheet, at the end of the week, it's quite easy to go and have a look at everything that you did over 5 days. And then you can kind of categorize the different things that you do. Like you might have done, 3 times a week, you might have done some errands, personal errands. And then, a few times a day, you might check your email. So you log that down every time. And so if you have maybe 5 or 10 maximum top level categories, what you can do at the end of the week is you can do a little exercise to add up how much time you spend in each area. And then the idea of that is you then take that actual diary and you bundle together the clumps of similar tasks, and you try and put them in blocks. And then you create a diary where you do blocks of similar tasks, and you set time aside for deep work or thinking or creativity, and you actually set your diary ahead of the week. So you're not just kind of like dealing with things as they happen. And I find that that is the biggest way for me to personally save time. And I've always tried to operate like that. And I am quite strict in how I operate. It doesn't always work 100%, but it does help you manage your time much better. And you'll find that you have pockets of maybe half a day saved after just rearranging your day or your week in this way. And there's a really, really interesting anecdote. If you haven't heard of this anecdote, then do go and look at it. You know, just type into Google or YouTube and look up a little video about it, because there's quite a few different versions of it. But it basically says that if you take your most important things in your day, which are your rocks, and you put them into a jar, and you put them in first, and then you take your slightly less important things like the pebbles, so they're a little bit bigger than a little bit smaller than rocks, and you put them in your jar, and then you take your sand, and then you take your water. Your sand is like your less important menial tasks, and your water is your complete sort of unimportant tasks, and you put them all in, you'll actually manage to get a lot more in, and you'll especially get the big rocks, which represent your important tasks, into the jar first. But if you do it the other way around and you spend lots of time putting water and sand, all these nonsensical, sort of less valuable tasks into your day first, then you won't have time to do the important ones. And certainly I notice when I say, oh, I must quickly just answer all these emails, or I must quickly go and do all of these small things so I can focus on this important task. And then before I know it, the day is done and I still haven't gotten to that important task. So one of the time management tips is really to do that important task, or those most important tasks first. And I won't touch too much on this because I have an ebook resource that I can share with you after that goes into this in much more detail. But there's also an Eisenhower matrix where it kind of categorizes tasks into important and urgent tasks, things that you must do now, and things that are not important, not urgent, but important, like planning and strategizing, and then things that are not important, but they are urgent, so people phoning you up. And those are really when you're being sort of managed by other people's urgencies or other people's lack of organizational skills. And then the other things are these busy time-wasting things, which are not urgent and they're also not important. So that's another way of looking at time management, by importance and urgency. But I personally like to look at a matrix like this, and I called it the meta matrix. And what it means is that you actually look at your tasks by what you're good at and what you actually enjoy doing. Now, if you think about your to-do list and you look at things that roll over constantly on your to-do list and never get done, I can pretty much guarantee, unless you're super, super disciplined, which most people are not, I can pretty much guarantee that the things that get left off the bottom of your to-do list and don't get done constantly are the things that you don't like doing. Even if you're actually good at them, if you don't like doing them, they're probably not getting done. And so, you know, my theory, but it's not really much of a theory because I think it's quite obvious when you think about it, is if you spend time doing things that you're good at and you love to do, then that's the best way to spend your time. If it's something that you're really good at, but you hate to do it, that's something that you really need to invest time in, because you need to invest time in getting rid of it. So that's when things like automation or delegation are important, because it does take time to automate. It does take time to hire someone and delegate and train them. But actually you're investing time in actually getting rid of that task. So in the long run, it's going to be worth it. And then if you're not good at it and you love to do it, then by all means, manage your time and decide whether or not you need to spend time on that, or whether you should actually get someone else to do it for you, or if you want to get better at doing that. And then, of course, the other option is, you know, if you're absolutely not good at it and you hate to do it, you must get rid of that task because it's going to burn your energy and it's just not going to be good for you or your business or your health if you spend a lot of your time doing that. Sometimes we have tasks like that on our list that we can't really delegate, we can't justify offloading to another person, and we can't automate, so we just have to do it. But we want to minimize as much as possible the time we spend in that bottom quadrant. And I know for sure when I spend a lot of time doing things that I'm not good at doing, that I hate to do, that I get drained, I get irritable, I'm less creative, and I just don't enjoy my day or my work as much. So I'm quite conscious that if I'm feeling grumpy about my work or I can't get up in the morning because I feel demotivated, it's probably because I have too much of that on my to-do list. What we're going to do now, well, I'm not going to give you the exercise of the time audit to do as I would normally on these events, but I'm going to give you that as homework if you'd like to. So I would love for you to go and do that. And as I mentioned, I'll send out an ebook that explains in a little bit more detail how you might do it. And if you want to do it and reach out to me after and let me know how you got along, and if you found anything interesting, then please do. I would love to hear from you. So the next part of the webinar is really about the automation part. So now we've talked about, whether you should even be doing a task or not. Then I'd love to know, can it actually be delegated to a human or to a machine? And there are so many tools now that help us automate. So it's not exactly like the old days where we think about automation and it really is robots. In fact, I'm not kidding you. This poster I had on a physical poster in a frame hanging on my office wall, and I thought it was very funny. But it's like, they have these motivational posters. So this brand is called the Demotivational brand, and they have demotivational posters. So this one says motivation, but then when you read it really carefully, it says, if a pretty poster and a cute saying are all it takes to motivate you, you probably have a very easy job, the kind that robots will be doing soon. And we were in, IT support, so the engineers all thought that this was kind of funny, but maybe scary as well, because it's true. There are a lot of jobs that are being taken over now by automation. I love to talk about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics. Is my job safe when the robots come? And it's a question that a lot of futurists and a lot of technology sort of enthusiasts and academe talk about a lot. But the reality is, every single day, robots and AI, artificial intelligence, and just general programming, like programmed computer software, are now able to do more and more to take away jobs and tasks. I tend to look at it that the AI and the automation can take away tasks, and it means that roles change. It doesn't necessarily mean that roles become redundant. So simple examples of automation are things like, setting up a template in your Gmail, like a canned reply, so that you can just click that canned reply because it's something that you say all the time. Or even if you notice in your Gmail now, it has this intelligent thing pops up. If you've enabled it, when you're typing, you see sort of like little suggestions, because Gmail has become so intelligent that it can actually predict now what we're probably going to say in response to certain types of emails. Like, here's a report, great, thanks. You don't have to manually type it anymore because the AI will do that for you. So all in all, I love artificial intelligence. I think it's amazing, and I try to use as much smart technology as I possibly can in my business and my life. In fact, our house is wired up with Alexa, the Amazon artificial intelligent bot, and with speakers, and I use that to switch lights on and off, and to remind my kids to take their vitamins, and to remind my husband to feed the fish. So anything that I do repetitively that I can actually outsource to a robot, I will. But there are definitely things that you don't want to outsource to a robot, right? So let me just flick now to the different types of remote work. So I tend to be very biased towards encouraging entrepreneurs to hire an executive virtual assistant. If they don't have an assistant, either because they're working completely alone in their business and they're doing everything, or they have a team, but they don't have a person dedicated to assisting them, I personally really strongly recommend hiring a virtual assistant, because a good virtual assistant, will save you so much time. Just doing small things that you just don't have an extra pair of hands to do, right? So my VA, who's actually on the call, is an extension of me. She can do the things that I do when I can't do them all. I try to get her to sit in on meetings that I attend and be involved in all aspects of my work, and even some aspects of my life. Because the more she knows about me, the more she's informed about the way that I like to work and the things that I need to do, and the more transparent I am about my to-do list and how heavy my workload is, the more she can actually help me offload and make me more effective and efficient. But executive assistants are not the only role that you can hire remotely. You can also hire general admin, finance people, designers. Designers are probably one of the first types of remote staff that you would think of, because it's something that seems quite obvious that you could hire a freelance person to do. I mean, a lot of people will not necessarily hire a designer and then expect them to sit in their office. They will actually outsource that. But some other things, you might be surprised, are very easy to manage, you know, in a full-time with a full-time person working with you, but actually remotely. So sales, customer service, marketing, and even setting up and managing automation tools. Now, I don't know what your situation is right now, but most people have actually experienced having to work from home in the last few months because of the recent pandemic. So we at Connected Women are massive advocates for remote work, because we believe that it is the greatest sort of game changer for women. When we look at stats about women in the workforce and the challenges in terms of equality and everything else around sort of gender equality and work, providing flexible remote work opportunities to women can potentially make a big shift in the way that women interact with work, even after they've had family. So we have been advocates for remote work for many years now, back since, well, gosh, I've been working remotely pretty much my whole career, probably around 20 years now. But you know, our team is fully remote. So we have 20 plus team members now, plus some consultants and some people that do sort of sideline project work for us, and we work in a fully remote environment. So when COVID-19 happened, we were already working from home. You know, we also have a job platform. So Connected Women's main business is actually a job platform where you can hire Filipino remote staff, and that's part of our impact advocacy here in the Philippines. But I did come across quite a lot of barriers in trying to explain to, or trying to encourage and motivate entrepreneurs to hire remotely, because sometimes they really do feel that jobs need to be done physically and in their office. I think that I definitely agree that not all jobs can be done remotely. I mean, certainly things like being a security guard or being a cashier in a physical grocery store, those things are not yet disappearing, and I don't think we want them to. Malls and being a driver and all these types of things, right? We need physical jobs too, but there are lots of jobs that really just don't need to be done in a physical office. And if you live in a country like the Philippines, where it can take you 2 hours to travel to work, or 3 hours or more, and then 2 or 3 hours or more to travel back again because of terrible traffic and not a great infrastructure for transportation, then it just seems so crazy to have to do that when you can actually do your job from home. And for those entrepreneurs that are global, this is also a great way for you to save money in your business, because if you hire certain types of talented people from different parts of the world, where maybe the cost of a salary, a good salary in that country, is actually much, much lower than a cost of you know, someone even less skilled in your own country, then it only makes sense to hire the best talent that you can possibly hire from wherever you can find that talent. And certainly here in the Philippines, we have a lot of customer service talent, a lot of creative talent, just a lot of talent in general. And for around 600 to 800 USD a month, you can actually hire someone experienced and talented and motivated and passionate to work with you in your business. So if you think about that in the context of whichever country you're in, that may or may not be more affordable for you. But you know, you're not just comparing on the cost, you're also comparing on where is the best talent for this type of work. And there's definitely pockets of, you know, cultural pockets where certain types of work is a higher caliber in certain areas than others. So those are the different types of jobs. So going back a little bit to systemization, so one of the skills that is super in demand by all businesses that I speak to is the ability to build systems and improve processes and eventually automate tasks. Now, it's very important to remember that systemizing is not a series of steps, right? So you really need to build a system, in your business, a physical system or physical process, improve that process, and then eventually automate it. You can't just jump straight into automate. So if you came to me today and said, Gina, look, I want to automate my marketing. Can you do that for me? The first thing I'm going to ask you is, great, send me your marketing process. If you don't have a marketing process, I really can't help you automate it. So you're going to have to go back to step one again. So think about those processes in your business that don't exist, and think about whether or not you're ready to automate your different things. Now, if you're thinking, well, I have no idea how to build a process, don't worry, that's pretty common. So the way that I look at it is, if the first thing that you thought when I said that is that I don't know how to build a process, then definitely 100% the first thing you need to do is find someone who can help you build processes, because you cannot scale your business or free yourself up from your business, if that's your goal, unless you have processes in your business. And so that, again, is one of the first things that I learned from my first business coach, is you have to build processes. And those processes should be ready. Like, they can't be a sort of bullet point of thing. They really have to be a step-by-step process that a person can easily follow without fail. So you need to test out your processes, give them to a person and say, follow these steps and tell me if it makes sense. And if there's bits missing, you need to fill in the gaps, because if a person can't follow those steps, a machine or an automation can definitely not follow those steps. So I guess my main point is going back to that earlier discussion about what are you good at and what are you not good at. You have to think about the types of people that you need in your business. Now, I don't want to hire someone who's exactly like me to be my executive assistant, because that would be a disaster. I have certain skills, like I'm creative, I'm strategic, I'm a community person, I love to share things. I'm much more right brain, and so those are my strengths. I have some competency in the sort of bottom left part of the brain, which is your logical processes, your ability to be organized, your ability to systemize things. I actually have competence in that area. So I can sit down and force myself to do those things, and I can do a pretty good job of it. But it gives me a headache and it drains me because it's not my favorite thing to be doing. So what I need is someone who can take those systems tasks and actually take my concepts and my strategy and really run with those. Right? Because I need someone who can complement me. That was the first thing that I looked for when I hired my first VA. Now, if you were the opposite and you are very much a very detailed person, more introverted, maybe less creative, and you just want to focus on the back end work and the systems and processes, you might be wanting to think about hiring someone who's different to you, who enjoys doing the things that you don't like doing, so that you can offload some of those to them. I have to just say that when at the beginning of this, I said that you probably don't want to hire someone exactly like you. That's not always true. Sometimes you might want to hire someone who is just like you. And that's if you have a lot of work that you're good at doing, but you just don't have enough time to do it. You might need to try and find someone who can actually go and do that work for you. So I think about what do you need. So I have this kind of comical, this explanation here. Like, do you need, if you're a Batman, do you need a Robin? Are you I can't remember the name, Dr. Evil? Do you need a mini-me? Are you more of a lone wolf? So you're more of a Wonder Woman or a Superman, but you actually need to collaborate and team up with another person who's like you, who runs their own team. That could be a better option for you than actually hiring someone into your own team. If you need someone super senior, super experienced, and really good at doing other things, but you can't afford to hire them into your own team, then maybe a collaboration makes more sense. So that's something that I think is really important to think about before you even start hiring, or even if you're hiring to supplement a team that you've already built. So if you have a strong team already that does certain types of things, but now you're having to think about it differently because you're transitioning your business because of COVID-19, for example, an offline business into an online business. It's quite difficult to retrain all of those offline team members to be really good online, for example, to take an offline shop in e-commerce shop. So you may need to think about supplementing your existing team with people that have expertise that you didn't need before. So things like that to think about. So now some of the practical tips. these are the types of questions that people normally ask me. Well, how much does it cost, right, to hire? So it really, really depends. It depends on whether you're hiring part-time, whether you're hiring full-time, whether you're hiring a freelancer, whether you're hiring someone who is a full, a work from home flexible worker who just supplements the work that you do, whether you're hiring a digital nomad, where in the world is this person coming from, and what level of talent do they have, and what level of talent do you need them to have? So for example, if I wanted to hire a junior admin person to support my existing executive assistant, because I want to give my executive assistant much higher level work, and if my EA is able to give time and some training, then we could probably hire a part-time junior person. And that would be much, much cheaper than hiring another senior person. But I can only do that because I have someone who I know can manage and train and has time to do that. If I'm hiring directly to work with me, I have to hire someone more experienced because I don't have the patience to train someone anymore from scratch and train them in every single thing. So I need to work with people who can work at my level. And so I'd rather invest more money in someone who can work at my level. And then depending on your business and your requirements and your budget, you may want to consider part-time freelance or other types of remote workers. But what I would say is continuity is very important. So if you want someone to really help you grow your business and be a partner in your business and sort of hold you accountable and give you some, some support in the leadership that you're providing to your team, then I would definitely go with someone long-term who's going to stay and wants to grow with you and your company. In that sense, I would say if your budget is small, then hire someone for less hours, but someone who wants to stay longer term, and then try to increase their hours over time as they start to get more involved in your business, and look for someone who's looking for that, because there are lots of women who are looking to get back into the workforce because they've taken a break after having children, for example, and now they really want to get back in the workforce, but part-time initially, and then slowly start to scale up their career again as the children become more independent. So I like to look for people like that because I find that they make a great fit. And it really helps to look for women who are experienced but want to transition back into the workforce, and online is a good option for them. So how do you hire? I'm just going to cover this real quick. I don't really see questions, so I think I will probably just run through these last few slides and answer as many questions that I think you might have as I can. But if you do have a specific question, don't be shy. You can post in the chat and I'm happy to answer them after the webinar or during the webinar if we have time. So if we're looking at how to hire, there are a few practical things that you need to think about. Well, if you are forced to work from home right now, then you're probably finding that you're now having to learn some new tools, or at least master some new tools. Maybe you've used them before, but not really at mastery level. Certainly for me, I've used Zoom for years, but I've never really learned it inside out. So now we're having to transition events online. So we're having to learn how to manage webinars on Zoom, how to manage the controls, how to manage attendees on Zoom. So those are the types of things that you might want to start mastering now. There are different groups of tools, of course, depending on your type of business. So you will need, most importantly and most definitely in any type of remote team, what you will need is collaboration tools. So if you're just if you're on your own right now and you're just using simple tools to collaborate like WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever else, or LinkedIn and email, that probably won't suffice as you start to grow your remote team. You could start with a WhatsApp group, for example, if you have an EA and you just want to work in WhatsApp and email. But if you start to have more complex projects to work on together, you're probably going to want to think about of course, your file sharing because of security. You're going to want to set them up with a proper email account. You're going to want to think about collaboration tools if you're a bigger team. Are you using tools like Slack in your business or Facebook Workplace? How do you talk to each other? If you're sending emails all the time to communicate with your team, that might work in an offline environment when you can just get up and walk across if you want to check something. But if you're in a fully remote team now, or you're planning to be, then that will be challenging. It will get messy and hard to manage, I think, and just doesn't feel collaborative because you don't have that discussion-based chat. Lots of people use tools like Viber or WhatsApp or Messenger, but then of course what happens is those also get messy because you can't really manage it very well. You can't set different controls. You can't set up sort of discussion threads. It's all chat-based, and chat is real-time based, so it means that there's constant noise, and if you take a break for a day or so, you've missed everything from yesterday. Whereas if you think about collaboration tools working kind of like a Facebook post would work, where you can post something up, and even people that didn't log into Facebook today can log in tomorrow and they can actually see comments and threads related to that topic. That's a better structure for a remote team. And actually, we've just transitioned from Slack, which is a team communication tool, and we're now using Facebook Workplace. And Slack was amazing, and I love it, and I strongly recommend it if you're a small team. But as we started to get bigger, probably could be the way that we set it up more than the tool itself, but I just found that it got too noisy. So what we did was we moved to Facebook Workplace, and so far our team are doing really great on Facebook Workplace. So that's something, and it's free, so I recommend you look it up. Slack is also free. And then, of course, your webinar tools and all the rest. So many tools to look at, but it's worth spending and investing some time in understanding what the right tools might be for your business. Oh, thank you, Monica, for your tips. I am a little bit challenged for time to try and squeeze as much information as possible, but I'm very glad to hear that it's coming across clear. So how do you measure performance in a remote team? This is a very, very important question to ask yourself, and it depends on many things. There are tools that you can use to physically record the screen of your remote worker, and I know a lot of people use them. I don't personally like using those tools. I find them too intrusive. If I had an office environment or a restaurant environment, I wouldn't want to put CCTV cameras over the desks of my team members, and I feel that it's a little bit intrusive if you're monitoring their screen and you're asking them to submit their sort of like screenshots of what they've been doing during their day. It could be because I work with people long-term in my team, so we already have a trusting relationship and we focus very much on output-based work. So we do have fixed hours, actually. We have a 9-to-6 schedule in our remote team, but we're not super, super strict about it because what we're looking for more is the ability for team members to get, to deliver on projects and tasks. And we have daily check-ins in our channel. We have weekly team reports, so we jump onto a team meeting for each department and we report on what we've been working on, what we're planning to work on, and the progress of those tasks. And we also talk about things like problems if we're stuck, if we need help, and things like that. So that's as well as the collaboration that we do in communication chat tools. We also have these online alignment meetings. And then we consolidate those reports every month, and then we have a management level meeting where we look at all the top level reports from all of the team members. So we know where what we've been working on together and where we're at for that month against KPIs and things like that. So we probably work very similar to an offline team, and we try and bring good practices from offline teams into online teams. But I really believe in output-based work. So it's important that remote team members or remote team managers train their tasks, train their staff, and enable their staff or their team members to really have a way of reporting on the work that they've done. Because what very often happens, and this is one of the main reasons why remote teams fail, is that the entrepreneur will be super busy, so they will just throw a bunch of tasks at their executive assistant, and then they will go and carry on with their own work, and then the executive assistant will do the tasks and have no idea whether or not to report them or what to do with them after, if she's inexperienced especially, and then the entrepreneur will say, well, I don't know what she was spending her time on. So remember that very first topic that I mentioned at the beginning about knowing how you spend your time. That's important for you, and it's important that you pass that on to your teammates as well, because they need to know how to audit their time and understand how they're spending their time, and actually encourage them to report to you on what they've been doing. Not necessarily timesheets. You can do that in the beginning, or if you just want to check on how people are, how people are getting along and how productive they are. But I think it really has to be an open and trusting relationship, or it won't really work out in the long term. So, on to the next topic, which I think is very important in any business, not just a remote team, is really have strong values and a strong culture. and make sure that you hire people that meet your expectations in terms of that culture. I think that communication, collaboration, transparency, consistency, focus, and discipline. Those are the things that I look for, because if you don't have those traits as a remote team member or as a remote team, it's very difficult to succeed. If you're the type of person that needs to, if you're a remote team member, for example, and you need a manager to be watching you and following up on you all the time, it's even less likely to happen in a remote team because we can't see each other. So it's harder to see if someone's sort of sitting idle or not busy. So you really need to look for people that have those values. And I look for people, of course, that are honest, that have integrity, but I also look for people that have a sense of curiosity, who are fun, and enjoy being part of a fun culture, because we try to have a fun culture as much as we can. And especially people who are resilient, because even before this happened, we're in a tech startup business, and so we have a lot of up and downs and change happening. So we need people who can stomach and cope with that kind of shift happening all the time. And I also look for people who are kind. I mean, it's a little bit underrated, I think, kindness. But I think if people are kind to each other and to customers, then they'll always be able to deliver a good service if they put kindness first. So those are what I look for. Now, the hiring process is quite linear. You must start with a job description, as always. Any type of hiring, I mean, whether it's offline or online, of course, and thinking about when to hire, and when you would like to do that. Bear in mind that you will have to spend some time on onboarding your remote team member, and not just spending time welcoming them and bringing them in, but also setting up their tools and making sure that they know how to use their tools. So consider hiring when you have a little bit of space in your diary or breathing space, not when you're super, super busy. A lot of people in December say, oh, I'll hire in January because I'm going to be quiet. And I say, please hire when times are quiet, because you don't want to come back to work in January and then hire someone, okay? Think about that. It seems kind of obvious when you say it out loud, but a lot of the time people do say those things to me. Job platforms, well, if you're hiring remote staff specifically, then you need to probably go to platforms that specifically deal with remote team members. Connected Women focuses on people that want to hire long-term remote team members from the Philippines. So our applicants are all women. So if you're looking to hire a male applicant, then we're probably not the best platform for you. But if you want talented women who are experienced and educated and committed to work, then we have those ladies. If you're looking for an international sort of applicant base, then you might want to look at something like Upwork, because they have people from all over the world, and you can hire them long-term, short-term, task-based, hourly. It really depends on you. So those are quite important to consider. And then you need to set up a good process for shortlisting, screening, interviewing, and making an offer. So it's just the rest of it is pretty much just like the offline hiring process. And I won't go into it more because I do cover it a little bit more in my book, but I'm sure there are many resources and tips out there that you can find about hiring in general. So finally, and literally the last couple of minutes, and I do see a question. Okay. I think I covered the question about personality compatibility a little bit. Well, I mean, I think I covered what you should be looking for, but I think, the best way to assess someone's personality is to have a conversation with them. So when I interview people, I'm very untraditional. I want to get to know a person. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, and I want to get to know them. And I especially want to know what their aspirations are, because I want to know what your aspirations are in life. Like, are you looking for flexibility? Are you looking for, a career that will stretch you? Are you looking for something a little bit chill because you have a lot of stuff going on at home right now? I always really want to know, what is it that this person is looking for, and how can I help them achieve their career goals? Or can I even help them? Maybe she might not be the right fit because what she's looking for, we can't give her here at this particular organization. So think about aspirations, I think, more than anything. And quality of work. So there's a question here about how do you ensure quality of work with a remote team? Well, I think that gets a little bit covered here. So it says, does it require additional management time invested by the leader during the first few months? Absolutely. please don't expect a person, even an experienced person, to jump in and just be amazing. They may be amazing, but they may not be amazing working with you. So you must set time to train your virtual assistant. And please, please, please set realistic expectations, because you can't expect a person to learn your whole business in 2 weeks. They may have a lot of experience under their belt, but they need to learn how you like to work. They need to learn how you like to do things. And so you have to be willing to invest the time to share that with them. Unless, of course, you have another team now that can do that for you and take care of the onboarding. And if they're going to be working with someone else, of course, within your team, then you might not have to put so much time in. But I do try to put a little bit of time in with all of my new team members, even if they're not working directly with me. And when I haven't done that, unfortunately, it doesn't work out, because if there's challenges happening within their team or within their own work, and they don't feel comfortable to come to me and talk to me about it because they don't know me, then it makes it much, much harder to help them stay motivated and help them in their career as well. So you do want to invest some time, at least a day set aside if it's someone who's not directly working with you, and if it's someone directly working with you, at least a week. Not necessarily one block of a week, but a week of time you're going to have to invest in helping them really get. And then 3 months, it's going to take 3 months for a person to be fully settled in. And this is the perception, unfortunately, that some people have of working from home. So it's very important that you have those tools set up and you have a very clear understanding between you and your remote team member of how you expect them to report their work. Because if you tell them, send me a report every Friday, that might be what they do. But if you don't tell them to do that, they may not do it at all. Payment methods, I do cover this a little bit more in the workshop, but I can't because it just varies so much country to country. But there are many ways to pay remote workers. These are some that are available from the Philippines, for example. But think about, just ask questions at your local bank. If you can set up direct online transfer between your country and another country, that could be the easiest way, or PayPal, but it costs a fee. So you have to decide who's going to shoulder the fee if you pay with PayPal. So replacing a team member or hiring a new one, if it doesn't work out, you have to go back to the beginning. If you hired someone and it didn't work out, then you have to really try and understand what went wrong. And if you can do an exit interview with a person who is outbound from your team and ask them what could you have done better to have supported them in their role, as painful as it might sound, and it might be to hear it, the problem could actually be you. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. Sometimes people, they leave my team and I realize it was my fault. I didn't do my job properly as a manager. I didn't invest enough time in them, and so it made it difficult for them to succeed. And I reflect on it later, and I try and make sure that I don't make the same mistakes twice. And there's a little bit more on this in my ebook as well. So that's it. And I think I pretty much covered all the questions in what I said. There was just one question that I didn't answer. So Minnie is asking about data security, and that's kind of a tricky question to answer. But my very quick answer to that is, think about how you handle data security in an offline team. It's not going to be too different. Right now, most of us use cloud tools, so we're definitely going to be giving access to cloud tools to people that work in a physical office. All the best practices of following, privacy, security for files, documents, and information should be exactly the same as what you do offline. What I would say is, no matter who your team member is, all information should only be on a need-to-have basis. So some stuff you want everyone to have access to, and some stuff you only want a few people to have access to, and make sure that you set up your file sharing and everything else so the right people have access to the right information, and no more, ever. And don't give them access to everything at once. So use a tool like LastPass, which is a password manager, and that allows you to share access to your tools and then revoke access to your passwords if you need to. But don't onboard someone today and then give them access to everything, your bank, your all of your company databases and everything. Just give them what they need. They might not even need access to anything in the first couple of weeks or month. You could just give them work to do in a small shared folder, and then later start giving access as you build trust and as you get to know each other and when they need it, because their responsibility is bigger. Lots more questions. I'm more than happy to stay on to answer more questions. Minnie, is that okay? Maybe what I'll do is I'll do a close now so that those who need to leave can leave. I would love to keep in touch with you. If you have questions about hiring, you can contact me at gina@connectedwomen.com. You can also go check out connectedwomen.com, so there's more information there. And I will also share the ebook that covers this in more detail in case you want to have a bit of a read through of that. And so if you need to drop off, thank you so much for joining. It's been a real pleasure to have you here, and I hope it was valuable. And thank you so much to Minnie and WEConnect for inviting me. I will now have a look at some of these other questions, if those ladies who asked the questions have time to wait, because there's a couple of good ones. There was one. So Manuka was asking, how do I see hiring in the near future? That's a very interesting question. Well, I think the first thing that we're noticing right now is that, of course, the shift in the interest in hiring remote team members is much greater, either because people are forced to work remotely, and so they've had to do it anyway, and they're suddenly seeing some of the benefits and probably some of the disadvantages of working from home, and they want to understand how they can maximize the benefits of working from home when things go back to normal or a little bit back to normal. And so that's piqued a lot of curiosity, I think. So we've experienced a lot of sign-ups since this happened, showing an interest in hiring, but not necessarily yet pushing through. So I think people are still very much exploring whether or not this could be an option. I think for some industries where they're struggling right now, because, like they're a physical business and they're now having to downsize, I think that they will definitely be looking for remote, like more affordable remote options. So I think, definitely if you're in a business and you want to cut costs, as difficult as it is, you may not be able to afford to keep on your full-time physical team, indefinitely. You may be forced to make some tough decisions and cut costs. So if that is the case, then you might want to consider how you can reduce those costs in different ways. So, you could have a partial local team because you still need people in your local country who can do things there and that understand your culture. So you might want to do that, but then you might want to outsource some of the more generic work to countries where you might be able to hire someone equally talented but cheaper, and then give your other people different types of work that they would be better placed to do and have better value of their time. And you may also, and then of course there's some companies are booming right now. I mean, logistics companies, Zoom, I tried messaging Zoom with technical support and it took me about 7 days. It took them about 7 days to get back to me. So I seriously considered going, like offering them some team members because I think they need help with their chat support, and things like that. So there are industries like logistics that are booming and need people. So lots of changes happening and nobody knows the answers. We're still just watching the trends and trying to figure out what's happening. But I think remote work will be the future. That was a long answer and I tried to be as practical and less futuristic, but I do think that remote work will be the future. And for women, it's such a big game changer. It makes so much sense to give talented women the option to work from home so they don't drop out of the workforce. The majority of the women who come to our platform are dropping out of the workforce because of family responsibilities or because it's just not practical to get to wherever their work is. So if you could have a really experienced senior, willing to work part-time woman leader working in your company from home, and all you have to do is give her some flexibility, why wouldn't you choose that as opposed to hiring a less experienced, less motivated junior person just because they can sit in your physical office because they live near where your office is? So I think, it just doesn't make sense to think in physical location anymore when so many things can be done remotely. And that's my feelings, and I obviously feel strongly about it. And did I catch any questions? How to delegate new tasks? So I think delegating new tasks, again, goes back to your own systemization. It's very difficult to delegate a task, whether it's in person or remotely, if you don't have a good system in place. So go and look at the things that you really need to offload and look at how you're doing that task yourself and try and get into the habit. And it's boring. I hate doing this, but it's so important. Document step by step, with screenshots and information about how to do that task, and then offload that task, let them do that task and get used to doing that task, oversee and make sure that they're doing it well, and then let go of that task and then move on to the next task, and then make sure that it's systemized and documented, and then offload the next task. Or what you could do is you could train your person, whether they're remote or physically, and how to do the task, and then ask them to document it. So they need to learn how to do simple documentation first, so that they can document the things that you train them on, and then they can actually take over the task from you. But it's so hard to train people on things that are not documented or systemized, because otherwise it will take you so much time, and then there's too much room for miscommunication, and then potentially, if you have to replace them or you have to bring in a new person, you've got to do it manually all over again. So it's so important to try and set up systems. And I think I pretty much covered it, all of the questions. And we went over a little bit, but thank you so much for staying and listening in to these additional questions. Again, if you would like to reach out to me, you can drop me an email, and I will hand back to Minnie now, in case Minnie has anything to add.
Thank you so much, Gina, for taking the time to do this.
My really pleasure. Thank you. Thank you again. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And have a nice day.
Okay, bye.